Think about the moments where you can't play through a passage. You stop, you fumble, you hesitate, you keep slipping, keep restarting. Those are musical stutters. And you need to hear this clearly. It is absolutely possible to teach yourself to do those things repeatedly. You teach yourself how to develop a stutter. And that is very hard to break. All right, now we're focusing on practicing, how to practice. Because practicing is a twofold process. It's mental, but it's also very practical and tactile. You're not just training your mind, you're training your hands and your muscle memory to function in a very specific way. And because of that, you need to be deliberate. You want to make sure you're not reinforcing mistakes. You're not reinforcing what I call stutter. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain why practicing is both mental and physical. Identify what a musical stutter is. That's my made-up term. But, by the end, you'll know when I say musical stutter, what I'm referencing, and how it gets reinforced. How to use a metronome or a drum beat to build real time and precision. How to choose a slow and comfortable tempo that makes mistakes almost impossible. Practice with calm, relaxed technique, and minimal tension. Learning songs in small sections, loop them, and then stack them together. So when I say practicing is both mental and physical, what do we really mean? Mentally, you're learning what comes next. You're learning pattern recognition, right? You're training the mind to stay focused on a singular task. The physical part of it is you're teaching your body how to execute it the same way every time, with precision, right? It's kind of like archery. When you're practicing to hit that target, you want to make sure the way you pull back that bow is the same way every time with the same tension. You want your hands to be at the same height, all of those things, for people who do any sort of target practicing, being able to do the same task the same way all the time. That's how we train our body to be precise. And the piano is no different. We got 88 keys and there's this thin. Look how little thin the keys are. And we're trying to hit those at pretty fast speed, accurately, with certain level of control and timing, right? So that's the physical aspect of practicing, which is why we need to do the same thing the same way all the time to build that precision skill. So the repetition of practicing is powerful, but it also means you have to be careful because you can accidentally train the wrong thing. And that's what we call a stutter. So let's talk about stutter. When you hear stutter, think about the moments where you can't play through a passage, right? You stop, you fumble, you hesitate, you keep slipping, you keep restarting. Those are musical stutters. And you need to hear this clearly. It is absolutely possible to teach yourself to do those things repeatedly. You teach yourself how to develop a stutter. And that is very hard to break. So that's why you want to be intentional. You don't want to practice your mistakes until they become the default way in how you play. That happened to me when I was learning classical piano years ago, in my early years of learning classical piano, because I didn't know how to practice. Practicing things too fast, trying to jump ahead too quickly. I was doing all kind of messed up things, and I realized I could not play through a piece without having 1,001 mistakes. But also when you start having these chronic mistakes where you feel like you can't do anything perfectly, that builds anxiety. So you're not only developing musical stutter, you're building anxiety. Now this is why it's important to practice to a metronome. Whether you're using the traditional metronome or a drum beat, this helps you or prevent you from developing musical stutter. So whether you're practicing scales, arpeggios, block chords, broken chords, anything that requires you to play in time, you need to have a metronome or a drum beat going. I know a lot of us don't like to practice with a metronome and go, oh, I don't really need it, I'm good. Or you might just, it's an afterthought. It really needs to become part of that forefront of your planning process. Everything you're practicing, again, don't equate practicing with just jamming. Practicing has a desired outcome. We're working towards an objective. Whenever you're practicing, that metronome needs to be going. Right? A lot of people treat time like it's an optional thing. It's not. One of the core elements of music is time. And time and rhythm is like this. You want to develop good rhythm, you also need to have good timing. can't have one without the other. The ability to play in time with precision is developed. It's not something you just stumble into and one day you got all these cool rhythm and timing. It's something we deliberately work on over the course of years. Now, some people are more rhythmic than others. Some people have more sort of internal, better time, so to speak, than others. But it's my belief that everybody can develop rock solid timing. We just got to focus on it more, right? It's no different than like sports. Some people are naturally more athletic. Others have to work on it. We can see that matriculate through all aspects of life. There are people who are naturally gifted on various things. Language. Some people just learn languages like that. And then you got guys like me who struggle with just one language, let alone trying to learn a second one. We all have our strengths and our weaknesses. So if timing and rhythm is one of yours, challenge, then it just means you need to work on it. And one of the ways you do so is by working with a metronome consistently. So the most important rule of when working with a metronome, and I'm using metronome sort of loosely, because again, metronome, I'm talking about standard old school click metronome or a drum beat. A drum beat is just a fancier way of saying metronome, or a more modern way. Personally, I like to do everything to a drum beat because it feels more musical to me than just a standard click metronome. But whichever you prefer, whichever you have available, start using it, right? When you practice with a metronome, you need to pick a tempo that is slow and comfortable. There isn't one magic number because slow is different for everyone. So wherever your slow is, right, that's where you need to start. So here's how you find your slow tempo. Slow and comfortable means it's almost impossible to make mistakes. That's it. We need a starting point. For every skill that we're working on, we need a starting point. How do we find that? You find that tempo where it feels almost impossible to make mistake. That's slow. You need time to think. You need time to prepare your hands. You need time to move your hands, whatever it is. But the tempo or the metronome helps ensure that we're doing it in time. Whatever we're doing, even at a slow pace, we develop a sense of time. And then you move from there, gradually increasing in speed. And part of why you want to start slow is not just to avoid mistake, but to also maintain a sense of calmness and looseness, to be tension-free. When we're slipping and we're fumbling, or we're making repeated mistake, you don't want to just push through that, because that's again how you're training your stutter. That's also how you develop this chronic anxiety, where each time you sit at the piano, there's a sort of anxiety that starts to build in you, a little nervousness, a little jitter. That's because you're unintentionally training yourself to be in that sort of flight or fight state. We're going too fast, we're fumbling, we're slipping. Nobody wants to fumble and slip when they're playing a piano. But that developed that angst. And so by practicing slowly and calmly all the time, you're learning how to not develop any form of anxiety. Practice should feel calm, not anxious. This part is huge, right? And if you live in that anxious state long enough, your body starts to associate playing with anxiety. It's impressive how psychology works, how the human mind works. It starts creating connection where you don't want it to create connection. And this is why we got to be deliberate. So we're teaching our mind the right thing. Now you're starting to see why practicing is both mental and physical, or another way of saying mental, psychological. Because it's a psychological game that starts to happen with our brain, where we're like, hey man, each time he sits around this instrument, he gets anxious. So you know what? We're just going to just naturally start creating that for him. Whenever he sits at the piano, whenever she sits at the piano, we're just going to throw a bunch of anxiety towards her. And again, I'm not telling you guys anything that I have not personally experienced. As a young pianist coming up, I remember I would go in the practice room to practice my piece, sit at the piano, and just a wash of anxiety would come over me. Because all I'm starting to think is, can I really play the piece today without making a mistake? You start thinking about all the spots that you always make mistake. And you're approaching it timidly because you've taught yourself now to just exist in a state of like, I may get it this time, I may not get it this time. It's become a guessing game. And that uncertainty makes you anxious. You want to sit at the piano with a level of certainty that you got it. But it's not just looking yourself in the mirror and saying you got this. You can't just hype up yourself like that and then sit at the piano no. Whatever you train your body over the course of weeks, months, and years, that's what's going to happen. And no amount of pep talk in the mirror is going to change that. We have to change it slowly by implementing all the things we talk about above. So the goal while practicing should be relax joints. You'd be surprised how our body hold tensions in strange places. And one of those places is our joint. Your neck, elbow, wrist, lower back, upper back, even hips. And oftentimes we're not even aware of these things, that we're tight in these areas. When you practice slowly, you can feel these tensions because, again, you have time to think about what you're doing, right? So relax joints. No tension in the shoulder, no tension in the back. You want to have a calm, clear mind. When you're practicing things, it should feel as if you're practicing in slow motion. I remember when I used to have to play this piece that required me to stride like this distance, but it was more like, for me to be able to do it at that speed, I had to practice it slowly. And deliberately relaxed. I need to figure out where my eyes need to go, my hands need to go, and then gradually increase that. Then over time, by the time I get it to my final tempo, which is like my hands are moving so fast, I can't keep track of them. But that's the goal. The goal isn't to keep track of your hands when they're moving that fast. It's to know the passage that well that your hands know where to go without you looking at it. And that's how I had to train it. And we can do that with all the different things. You know, when people see me run arpeggios, and you go, how do you play that fast? I'm literally not looking at these individual notes. It's my body know exactly the distance it needs to travel for each octave. Huh? You train your hands and your body to move in a certain way that you kind of don't even need your eyes at certain points. And you can do it at whatever speed you want while still maintaining a sense of calmness and being relaxed. And so, yes, you're aiming for close to zero mistakes. It might sound like we're saying you're aiming for perfection. No, we're aiming for zero mistakes. There's a difference between trying to be a perfectionist and trying to avoid mistakes. When you're going down the stairs, are you aiming for perfection or zero mistakes? One mistake and you start rolling down that stairs. That's dangerous. So when you're going down the stairs, up the stairs, you're aiming for zero mistakes. When you're on the road driving, you're aiming for zero mistakes, because those mistakes, sadly, can mean the difference between life and death, or life with serious injury. So it's the same thing. While there's no life-threatening mistakes when playing the piano, you still want to treat it like that. You avoid mistakes as much as possible. That's the goal. Mistake happens because we're human, right? But you don't want to rehearse mistakes because you don't want it to become a part of your final performance and when you have to play.